at least the immediate need of the children gets really addressed over a period of time. And gradually, this entire ecosystem starts accepting that there is a mental health issues amongst children also, which we have not, neither us nor society has accepted it as an issue till now.
Hello and a warm welcome to a very special podcast series, Unusual Suspects. I'm your host, Gaurav Chaudhary. This is a series about unraveling stories of entrepreneurs, investors, professionals, and philanthropists who are disruptors, yet not in your face. Their disruptions have consistently delivered on the purpose and the mission they've embarked on. Their values are as strong as the mission. While they're ruthless in pursuing their ambition, they don't stray from being leaders who are not just admired for the vision and relentless pursuit, but also for how they are building an ecosystem of believers who consistently push the boundaries. In each episode, I speak to one such leader, talking to her or him or them about their businesses, lives, inspirations, interests, challenges, pivot moments and turning points, successes, failures, agonies and ecstasies, and of course, the little joys of life and work. It is as much about their personal life stories as about their entrepreneurial, professional, and philanthropic journeys. Unusual Suspects streams on Earshot.in, Spotify.com, Apple Podcasts, YT Music, which was earlier Google Podcasts, moneycontrol.com, and a host of other podcast streaming directories and platforms. For this episode, I'm delighted to have Rajesh Ranjan. Rajesh is the board member of ChildFund India. He has over 3 decades of experience in the social impact sector across Asia and Africa. Rajesh was previously the Chief Executive Officer of the Wish Foundation and now serves on its governing board. His expertise lies in public health programs, where he has successfully designed and managed large-scale initiatives using a health systems approach. Over the years, Rajesh has leveraged digital and medical technology to enhance accessibility and equity for undeserved populations. His work has led to significant impact and has been widely adopted and scaled within the primary healthcare ecosystem. Welcome to Unusual Suspects, Rajesh. Delighted to have you on the show.
Thank you, Gaurav. Glad to be part of the show.
Rajesh, let's start off this conversation with something that is very contextual, and everyone, include anyone who has any children at home or in their immediate ecosystem, is concerned about, or at least talking about, which is about child online safety. Where does India stand on this? Because was an early ratifier of the UN Convention for the Rights of the Child, which is called the CRC, of 1990, and we have followed it up. We have legislated our own laws and rules and regulations. The legal system seems to be fairly robust and in place, with lots of ring fencing already done. In this context, how can if you can just help us understand, how is ChildFund India's initiatives, particularly in 3 states such as Maharashtra, Karnataka, and Odisha, has been a force multiplier?
Thank you, Gaurav. As you rightly said, that the online safety and protecting the children from the online issues have been an issue within the context that we really operate. More so in the Indian context, if you really see this, mainly because of 3 reasons. One, that awareness about the online safety issue is something that needs to be really improved upon. Second is that I think if any awareness has happened, it has happened mostly to the people who are educated enough, but not the one who are from the rural places. And it also is an urban phenomenon more than the rural. However, when it comes on the safety issue, it happens that our children from the rural areas are also getting impacted, though this misnomer that it is only an urban issue at this point of time. Third, I think the policies are in the process of being developed right now. And whatever little bit has been developed, at this point of time, it has not percolated down fully to the state level and from the state to the districts and the community level. So if you really see this, I think with the rise of the digital connectivity, our kids remain susceptible and increasingly susceptible to the online cyber exploitation, cyberbullying, and other forms of digital abuse. I think probably the second point is that the caregivers in this case, which not only limits to the family, as I said earlier, but also the teachers, the community members, the other stakeholders that we really talked about, the panchayats, the police, the different departments, there's a need to really educate them and make them fully aware about. So considering that part, I think there is a larger need. And Child Fund in the three states that you really talked about, which is Karnataka, Maharashtra, and Orissa, we started this partnership with the state child protection committee with the aim that first we need to really understand what is the seriousness and gravity of the situation within these three states. So doing a kind of mapping exercise. The second is that using the data to bring the major stakeholders, not only the Child Protection Committee or Commission, but also the police, the judiciary, the academic institutions, the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Women and Child, on a platform to really talk about how shall we deal with the situation and create a kind of pathway more in the form of the strategy. And then helping the state in rolling out the strategy across the state. So those are the three-pronged strategy which Child Fund currently has been thinking about in the states.
Absolutely, Rajesh. It's interesting that you talk about cyberbullying. Can you illustrate with some examples, both from villages and towns and cities, particularly from these states where Child Fund India is very active with their programs? How are you fostering a safer online ecosystem for children? Because it's not just about the children, it's also about the parents, it's also about the schools, that the institutions that they attend. And how do you go about measuring your impact? Because you have to drive this. And how are parents and guardians, for instance, responding to this, Rajesh?
First thing first is that I think we are starting with the multi-pronged strategy to deal with this. So we are not just making aware of the children. How we are doing is that we are taking the first school approach. The second is the community-based approach, where so school-based approach is school-going children are really being oriented and making aware. We are also engaging and involving teachers because our kids really spend 8 hours of their time with the teachers, and in many ways, I think teachers are also a counselor for these children. Many of the children really confide in the teachers who really have the trustworthy relationship there. Then we have what I said is that community-based approach, where we are starting the key community stakeholders like mothers group. We also have self-help group women there. We have youth groups, and we have Panchayati Raj institutions where the members of the Panchayat. And all these four groups are being oriented, trained in a structured way so that they become the kind of guardian, and they become a responsible, parents, responsible community members, responsible panchayat members who really ensure that their panchayats, their communities, their villages doesn't have any such cases where children are being really, exploited through the online processes there. Bullying is more common in the school setup, but as you know, a lot of that, as much as in the school setup, it happens in our neighborhood also. So the learning that we are providing on the cyberbullying, there are ways that the children are being taught to really practice it, adopt it, and that really helps. And in the community setup also, if such kind of bullying happen, which is outside the cyberbullying, that knowledge that they have been really gained, they apply in that context also.
Yeah, Rajesh, obviously the next question that is a logical follow-up to all of that is that what is the nature of cooperation with the respective state commission for protection of child rights, and every state has that now. How are they playing the role of a responsible enabler, and how are you adding on to what they are doing, Rajesh?
The State Child Protection Commission is the main body in any state, and they are the main responsible entity to really address any issues that really relates to child protection. Now, in the context of online and cyber, probably this is something which is new to most of the states there. And it's not that they were not aware of, but I think they have been aware, and some kind of sporadic um, events, consultation has happened. But what the partnership with Child Fund has done is that to help them in structuring it more in a strategic way, engaging not under the leadership of the State Child Right Protection Commission, giving the commission, the drivers, opportunity to drive it, helping them in analyzing the situation, what I said earlier, mapping the situation, realizing the situation, accepting it, and developing with the various stakeholders the strategy, a roadmap to deal with the situation, so that if such our kids get really exploited, bullied, there are very clear SOPs and guidelines which the school has to really, the district has to take necessary step. And not only in terms of the reporting, if such cases are reported, how the children gets counsel and how it gets, such cases are really, the loop gets completed, is also part of the process. So in that way, it's a new beginning for the State Commission, and we are very hopeful that this partnership will set a tone for other states to also really learn and practice it through with the learning of the three states that I talked about.
Rajesh, moving on, let's talk about something that has become even more, and it's a good thing that people are actually talking about it more after the pandemic, is mental health. And there's no gainsaying the fact that this is an area that needs serious, urgent attention and focus. My question is this: what kind of support are you getting from bodies such as the National Mental Health Mission, the state health missions, and also technical support from organizations like NIMHANS and the Central Institute of Psychiatry, etc.? The reason I ask you this because this issue does not have physical manifestations in the manner that you can spot it. But it is something that it seems to be affecting almost every family in some manner or the other. And we are in a world where there's explosion of media, explosion of information, and stress levels are rising, particularly among youngsters, children, and teenagers. What is it that institutions, the government institutions and the state institutions, can bring together with their institutional expertise and technical expertise, along with organizations like Child Fund of India? Rajesh?
And these institutions that you really talked about, in fact, you touched upon a subject, mental health of children and their, in the current circumstances. This whole subject topic, mental health, really picked in the last couple of years, and then probably social media, also the various, film personalities, sports personalities, all these people have really used their own personal experience to really bring this subject at the forefront. But, however, mental health remains still an issue which, like you and I know about, more an adult issue. There are some good efforts happening in the country. The country has set up mental health authority, and a good number of states have really started doing it. It's still at the work in progress or in an infancy state, but our children continues to really get impacted and their mental health there. I think what we realized is during this process that there is a growing need to address this mental health aspect, and more so not in a very siloed, but more in a comprehensive way there, where we can really integrate the mental health into the ongoing child development, issues, and bring the various systems and processes into a one platform so that the mental health for children gets accepted as an area for the policymakers, also implementers, and institutions like us. We can really become a part of the process to a certain extent. I'll say catalytic to the process there. I think probably if you really see this, there are larger, is the subject itself accepting, then the providers are limited. So not necessarily everyone should be a psychiatrist, some level of, intervention can be done by a psychologist also. Right? And wherever, so at least first level of intervention can be done at the psychologist level before we take it to psychiatrists. And there is a difference between psychologists and psychiatrists there, right? So the first level of intervention can happen at the psychologist level within the community and within the institutional setup, especially in the school setup, if we really talk about it. I think there's also the government has come out with Telemanas, and that's a great platform where anyone, and we are promoting that in our mental health intervention strategy with the state, that how can we really create an access between the existing government initiatives and the people who are really need that kind of. So Telemanas is a great platform where the government is providing those services to the needy people, especially including the children there. You named a couple of institutions like NIMHANS and Central Institute of Psychiatry. They have been in a conversation with one institution, NIMHANS, but we have in an advanced stage where we signed the MOU and we agreed that we will develop a state-specific strategy. We'll develop a community-based intervention strategy, which includes, using the platform, Manas platform there, the teleconsultation model there, so that at least the immediate need of the children gets really addressed and over a period of time, and gradually this entire ecosystem starts accepting that there is a mental health issues amongst children also, which we have not, neither us nor society has accepted it as an issue till now.
Rajesh, you talked about the programs and the kind of work that ChildFund India is doing, particularly in 3 states of Maharashtra, Karnataka, and Odisha. But who are your target groups? And broadly speaking, what are your approach and strategies? Essentially, in the age, what is the age cohort of children that you are targeting here, Rajesh?
So I think when you really provide these services, the definition is 0 to 18 for the children, but for ChildFund, I think we also really, the early, adults up to 24 years, we really provide those services there. However, in terms of the stakeholders, when you really talked about, as I shared earlier, schools and school teachers becomes the first one. Key community leaders, I talked about multiple, community structures there, which, mothers group. We have youth group. We have self-help group within the community there, and we have Panchayati Raj there. There are NGOs also who are well connected to these communities and the children, and they can be the easiest medium to really, if they get oriented and trained, they can be another change agent for that process. I think the government institutions is another one. So schools, community health centers, primary health centers, and even the ASHAs and ANMs. If you really provide the basic knowledge to ASHA and ANMs, they can also at least start providing the first level of intervention and bring the children who have, after the proper screening, to the Institute for Institutional interventions there, which is definitely required with the children that we really work with.
Rajesh, let's move on to something that Child Fund India is doing, and I understand that this is at a nascent stage now, which is in the area of climate action, and you're developing a theory of change, which I believe will be the primary focus area and will serve as a guiding principle for the area of this work. What will be its primary focus, and how will you go about executing this, Rajesh?
Being a child-focused organization, children is paramount and foremost for all our work there. So, the climate change impacts everyone, and especially the communities which are much more vulnerable to it, because the impact and the consequences are much deeper and far-reaching on these communities there. But one of the subset of a group that is more vulnerable in our context is the children, who doesn't have any role to play in disaster, but if you really say they impacted, you really pick any of the climate change, from the flood to the tsunamis. You will see that the children gets impacted heavily, and the impact is really severe on that. And as we really see in the face of the escalating climate-related extreme events that India, forget about the global, the region, the India has been experiencing the number of episodes that the event, we just thought about that it's appropriate for Child Fund to really start strengthening its climate action initiatives, to really align at least with the nationally determined contributors that is set up in our Indian context there. Since it's a initial stage, we are more focusing on the awareness generation. We have been working on building the community resilience. So both on preparedness and also making the community resilient to it. We realize that a majority of our work happens in the rural areas, and almost 80% of our beneficiaries, they are dependent on agriculture as their primary mode of income there. So we started also and climate impacts the agriculture output very much, right? So we also started educating, helping, and providing knowledge and equipments and to our village-based beneficiaries or community members, the climate smart agriculture knowledge. And some of the work that we have done in the climate-prone areas and even non-climate prone areas of the smart agriculture, it has really shown a remarkable improvement in how the community handled the climate resilient and climate situation and calamities. And yet, I think they didn't really, they maintain things in a normal way. So I think that's something we really, gradually we realized we work with a good number of almost 35% of our work happen in the tribal areas of India. And we realized that there is a good opportunity to reduce the greenhouse gas emission. That's something which is new, but we are very slowly and gradually taking steps in that direction also. I think our child-centered disaster risk reduction strategies that we really prepared, it is basically with the motive that our children and families are better prepared to face cyclones, floods, droughts, extreme weathers. And if you see the urban, the sunstroke, some parts of Odisha and other areas that we work, sunstrokes are very, very common there. So we have really built a child-centric disaster risk reduction strategy, and this is these strategies place children's participation and leadership at the heart of the action. So many times these strategies, which you will find institutions develop, children are not part of that. It's not inclusive. However, in this case, what we have been doing in Child Fund, that we are keeping the children at the forefront of those strategies. So as they really bear the brunt of this extreme situations most than any other population there.
Absolutely, Rajesh. Very well said. And thank you so much for taking the time out and dropping by to have this conversation with us and sharing your deep insights and perspectives on a variety of issues relating to children mental health, and also how children can play a big role and being the amplifying voice for very serious climate action. Thank you so much, Rajesh.
Thank you, Gaurav.